Nerds podcast. I'm your host, Sean Mott. Happy May the 4th to all my Star Wars nerds out there. Today we're talking with Jake Shaw from Defiler about, you guessed it, Star Wars. We rank the Star Wars movie from our favorite to least favorite, and then we just chat about everything from the Mandalorian to the video games that are Star Wars related and the movies. Before we get into that, there's a few news items. There's a live action Hercules movie set to come out with the Russo brothers directing. The Boys, the comic adaptation that's on Amazon, got renewed for a third season. Amazon released that second season. We all want to watch it. The next Transformers live action movie is coming out on June 24th, 2022. And before we get into this conversation with Jake Shaw, I wanted to plug a few of my friends' projects that are going on right now. My friend Joel has started a YouTube channel called @JoelCupcake Unedited. He just started having guests on. Check that out. Checked out the Get Tucked podcast. Tuck O'Leary from Fit for a King and Off for Minivan. I just had him on as well. Check out the Heart God Media podcast. I was a guest on that podcast. He covers wrestling, horror, pretty much everything movie and pop culture related. Buy merch from Revenge of the Nerd. I had Mike Beggs on a few episodes ago as well. Davey Muse has a podcast, another former guest. The My Actual Dude podcast. Check that out. Frank Finelli, he did the wrestling episode with me. He has a foundation called For the Nomads. Bunch of cool shirts. All the proceeds go to touring crew members that can obviously not be touring right now. You can check more information on that on forthenomads.org. My friend Alex Kendrick, who is a front of house guy, he started a new show. It's on Twitch and YouTube and Facebook Live called The Alex Kendrick Show. Check that out. And I just became friends with this dude who runs Knights of the Pin, and they just dropped, I think, 4 new pins. So check that out. And with that, let's get into this conversation with Jake Shaw. Jake, what's up, man?
Not a whole lot, my brother. How you doing?
Doing good. It was nice today in upstate New York. I rode my bike, and
That's pretty cool.
yeah, it's been raining for like a week. And the week before that, it was snowing every other day. After it would be 60 and then it would snow, and that sucked a lot. So
Is that how it is like during April in upstate?
sometimes, usually not. Usually it's kind of, like 60 degrees and bearable, but this year has been terrible with that. I don't know. It's been strange.
Whole world's kind of upside down right now, so I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all.
No, yeah, if this was the year for it to be super fucked, I mean, that's it.
I mean, like, if you told me that, it was raining, but it was raining bees, I think I would believe you. Just, because nothing surprises me anymore, It's, what? UFOs? Okay, cool. What's next?
Yeah. Aliens.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Tom DeLonge was right all along? Wow. Who saw that coming?
Yeah, he was right. So yeah, how has the coronavirus affected you personally?
It's been rough, man. You and I met because we were, we started, talking because we wanted to book shows for Defiler.
Yep.
For the triumphant return. And that got ixnayed pretty fast. I was working on a management deal and a record deal, and had just kind of finished shopping the new album around. And then one of these people was actually the first way back in the beginning of February to tell me, like, hey, pretty much everything's going to get put on hold for a little while. And I was like, why? And they were like, well, the virus is gonna, and I mean, this is before it had even been confirmed to like be in America or anything. So I thought the person was like joking, and I thought that they maybe were just like trying to blow me off or something. But then, like as the next couple weeks played out, I was like, oh, okay. Yeah.
this makes sense.
Right. So, so that unfortunately got put on hold. In the meantime, I decided to, record covers, keep reworking the album a little bit. So I've been doing that, and I'm kind of just trying to take it one day at a time and, do what the rest of us musicians are doing, I guess, which is a whole lot of nothing.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, that's how we got to know each other. Was I reached out to you after Defiler released that new song, and I expressed interest in working together. And then
Yeah.
eventually we're like, yeah, let's do it. And then we were going to do those shows in the summer, which people were pretty stoked about. We were going to do a few of them, and unfortunately, it's not going to happen for a while now. But
Yeah.
it will happen eventually.
Yeah. So yeah, we were working on putting some shows together, and I was really stoked on it. I had was working with the lineup. I was figuring out like a killer, a set and everything that was going to be like fan service, like celebrate the 10-year anniversary that's this year,
Yep.
all kinds of cool stuff. And then nope.
Oh yeah, and then we also realized that we both knew Mike from Recon, because
Right,
obviously
Mike.
I book Recon, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
how I got to know Mike. I mean, he lives pretty close to me anyway, but when I first started booking, he was one of the first bands I reached out to, and I booked a weekend for them, and then
Oh, I
eventually,
didn't know that they were actually one of the first.
maybe not one of the first, but I guess one of the first bands that had that wasn't super small and just like looking to start
Mm,
touring. A band that had a name behind them. And then I helped
mm.
them get on a few fests and some short tours and stuff. And they're just old dudes looking to do cool shit, so they're
Yeah, yeah,
down.
yeah. No,
So
Recon's amazing. I love Mike and all those dudes to death. He's like one of my favorite humans ever.
yeah, they're
Um,
great people.
so it was funny because as soon as I got the email from you, when I put it together and we were talking, and you were like, "Oh, I did Recon." I hit him up and I was like, "Yo, I gotta vet this guy. How is he?" And he was like, "Oh, dude, he's great." And I was like, "All right, all right."
Yeah, Mike's the man. I love Mike.
No, he's great.
So today's going to be about Star Wars. It's dropping on May the 4th. I realize this because usually I do it. I record the week before, and then those become next week's episodes. That's how I kind of
Okay.
roll with this shit. And then I was realizing, because all these May the 4th announcements kept popping up, like they're releasing the Mandalorian documentary series, the season finale
Ooh.
of Clone Wars, and then they just announced that Rise of Skywalker is going to be on Disney Plus. So the whole Skywalker saga is going to be on Disney Plus on May the 4th.
Wow.
And then I realized, oh wow, I can do a fucking Star Wars May the 4th episode. I am stupid. And I'm
Yeah.
glad I
Oh
figured
yeah.
this out. So
There we
so
go.
before we get into Star Wars, what other nerd stuff you're into?
So, as far as nerd stuff goes, like, it's funny because I was talking to my brother about doing this, and I was like, "Hey, what kind of nerdy stuff did I do when I was a kid?" And he was like, "You never were like huge into nerdy stuff specifically, because like there were things that I would do. Like, do you remember the movie The Mask with Jim Carrey?
Oh yeah, of course.
Of course. So I guess I used to do things. My memory is a little fuzzy, but I used to like I had my parents like find me the suit. I would put on the suit and I would go to my dad's work and like bust in when he was in the middle of a meeting and like recite half the movie. So like I had always had this weird like entertaining kind of thing that I would do.
Yeah.
So as far as nerdy stuff goes, like the other side of it's like I got into Zelda when I was like real young. Like I remember
Okay.
being like I think 4 or 5 when Ocarina of Time came out. And, we had just gotten the N64. And immediately I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. But I was so young that I used to have my older brother read me the dialogue while I would play it because I couldn't like I could read, but I didn't know what the words meant.
Yeah, you couldn't like
So
comprehend it.
yeah. So I was like, okay, so he says press X by the stone to pick it up, but I don't know what that means. What does it mean? And he's like, you
Right.
just gonna do that, So that and then Banjo Kazooie, I was huge into that. And then a couple of years went by and I got into Kingdom Hearts came out. And that was like because I love Disney stuff. And when Kingdom Hearts came out, I was like, dude, this is my thing. And then right around the time that I started Defiler, I got into the Fallout series.
Oh, okay.
And that was, so I was on house arrest for 6 months. And so my buddy brought over Fallout 3 and he was like, yo, you will get lost in this game. And I was like, I don't believe you. And then I started playing it and I was like, oh, okay. All right. Yeah. And that's just like, I never stopped playing that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never got huge into video games. I've talked about this on other podcasts, but for like I was super into Game Boy. Like I loved Pokemon. I played all the
Oh yeah.
OG Pokemon games on Game Boy.
Yep.
And I think I had a Super Nintendo, but I got it like late. I think my dad got it like trading with one of his friends or some shit. I don't even fucking know.
Huh.
But I play like Super Mario World and shit like that. But then I ended up
Yeah.
getting PS1 and PS2. But
Yeah.
it was mainly like Tony Hawk. I played all the Tony Hawks up into Underground 1 or 2.
Oh
I
yeah,
know at
of
least
course. I mean,
Underground 1. And then like Dave Mirra of Freestyle BMX. I fucking loved that
dude,
shit, dude.
yeah. That's
But games
that
like
was the
that,
one that yeah. No, I mean I played a bunch of I mean, again, I'm just going off this little list that I made, but I mean, dude, all those games like I remember there were I mean, how many songs and bands did we like find and
dude.
subsequently love because of those games?
So many. And then
You know?
now recently I've been getting in. I ended up trading design work because my friend owns like a mom and pop GameStop basically, and I
Okay.
traded him some design work for an Xbox One like years ago, and that was the
Yeah.
first console I've had since PS2. So that's how.
Wow.
Yeah, I just like I got into like music, so that's all I did, and I didn't really have money. Like my parents weren't; they were pretty poor, and
Yeah.
then all through like college and stuff, I didn't really have money at all. So
Right.
I didn't start having actual money until I got a job out of college. But even then, I was spending on like music equipment or shit like that,
Hmm.
or helping
Oh
fund
yeah.
merch or whatever. I wasn't trying to buy anything else. So but then I got that, and then I started buying the WWE games because that's when I got into wrestling. So I got back into
Oh,
wrestling.
okay.
So
Yeah.
I started playing those, and then now recently I've been getting into like story mode games. Like I just finished The Last of Us and like Jedi Fallen Order, and then
Oh, okay.
The
Yeah.
Spider Man game kind of got me into more story games because once that came out, I was like, oh, I could be fucking Spider Man, sick.
Yeah.
And I played it, and
Right.
the story is fucking amazing. And then after that, then Jedi Fallen Order came out in the fall, and I was like, hell yeah, Star Wars, I'm gonna play this fucking
Hmm.
game. And
Yeah.
then everyone's like, oh, Last of Us, play that. And I'm not very good at games either. I fucking die a lot, but whatever. I get through the games.
For me, it was well. Growing up, I had. Are you an only child?
No, I have a little brother. He's 2 years younger than me.
Okay, so I have. Wait, have what am I? What? So I have two older siblings and two younger siblings.
Oh shit.
So there was basically always kids playing video games in some capacity, So I was
That makes
like
sense.
smack dab in the middle. So whether it was my older brother playing on like the Super Nintendo or the N64, or then my little brother started getting into it and he started playing like Halo and things like that. So games were huge for me because, as you can hear, I have allergies. So for a significant portion of the year, I have to stay inside, which is hilarious because this whole, pandemic thing, I have to stay inside anyway. But yeah, I mean, I gravitated towards games because I think again, it's like a way for you to kind of, at least for me, it's kind of a escape from
Yeah, of course.
reality, And so as I've gotten older, like more recently, I don't buy new games as often, only because I'm like most of my, brain power is taken up by like music stuff. But like in the last couple of years, I bought like I think Kingdom Hearts 3, Battlefront 2, because I loved the first Battlefront. I guess that came out for the PS4,
Yeah,
right? Is that what it was?
I
Yeah.
think so.
So yeah, so I would always, so my buddy had that, and I would go over to his house and I would play the heroes and villains mode, and that's like the only one that I would play. And I like loved it so much. So as soon as that Battlefront 2 came out, I was like, gotta get this right now. And that's, I mean, I'm playing it like every single night.
Damn. I bought
Yeah.
Battlefront 2, but I didn't like it at all.
So the campaign was whack, and it also went by really fast. So like
I got to some weird flying mission, and it like the controls and everything sucked so bad. I was like, I'm out. I hate this.
honestly, I don't even think I remember that. I remember the character. It was Iden Versio, I think. Yeah, because that's one of the characters you can play in the heroes and villains mode, which is kind of the only mode that I play. It's kind of weird because I bought the whole game basically just to play that mode, but whatever. That part of it's cool because like I'm like, oh, I got this villain and I can unlock these new skins for it and this and that. You know what I mean? It's kind of
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
I guess it's kind of like a Fortnite type of thing where like you play and then like you generate the V-Bucks and you get the skins. That's kind of what it is for me.
Yeah. That makes sense. And
Yeah.
I know we've texted back and forth about Marvel movies and stuff. You talked about escape. Like that stuff was my escape. in the past recent years with just like I ended up like unfortunately had a bunch of deaths in the family and stuff. And
I'm sorry, man.
I mean, thank you, but it's life. It sucks, but it it is what it is. But the MCU and like comics kind of were my escape for all of that.
Right.
I got pretty much obsessed with the MCU and learning everything about anything comic related for the most part, and just
Definitely.
started buying comics. But that was my escape, and it's
Mm-hmm.
probably borderline unhealthy. But
Mm-mm.
I
I mean,
know far too much about the MCU than probably any person should.
I believe you definitely know more than me. But I mean, that's the thing, is that I also had like a large string of deaths in the family in like an extremely short amount of time. And it was like relatively recently, and that I actually hadn't before that. So after that, I kind of like got back into it because
Right.
around the time that it happened, I was mostly just doing music and, hanging out with my friends and drinking and, stuff like that. And then after that happened, I was like, I need something to occupy my brain that is not drugs. And
Yeah.
so I kind of feel like, people that have like obsessions like we do, like nerdy kind of stuff, it's not drugs and it's not hurting anybody else. So is it really unhealthy? Really? Is it?
I don't know. Sometimes
Yeah.
I probably annoy my wife way too much with it. But now I have stuff like now I have stuff like this, and I have a bunch of friends I talk with it normally anyway. So I'll be like, "Yo, this story came out," and they're like, "Oh, yeah," and we talk about it or whatever. So
Right.
I try not to bugger with it as much.
Yeah. No. Occasionally, like, it's funny. I've learned which games I can play because my girlfriend goes to sleep way earlier than I do, and
Gotcha.
I've always just been like a night person. I don't
Yeah.
know why. So I'll stay up and I'll either be like making music really quietly, like with the headphones on, or I'll be trying to play video games. So I've learned which video games I play too aggressively, like with the controller, and I wake her up. And so there's like certain games that I cannot play under any circumstances while she's asleep. One of them is Fortnite, because I started playing that game again and I was like, am I 12? Okay, I guess I'm 12. So I started playing Fortnite, and like that's one of the ones where like you do the building and like this and that, and it's super adrenaline and like you're moving fast, and then I'll be like, and I'll look over and I'll just like notice her head kind of peer up, and she's just giving me like the gnarliest death
That's
stare I've
fair.
ever seen, and so I just kind of take the controller and I'm just like, okay, sorry. And then I do something else.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I've gotten pretty good at it though. So like the games that don't have that kind of stuff are like, I mean, like the RPGs like Fallout, where you can spend a lot of time like traversing places or things
Yeah.
that are not like high intensity. That's the kind of stuff that I usually am doing in the middle of the night. Bummer actually, because Fallout. My two favorite Fallout games are Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, and those are on the PS3 now. The thing is that my PS3 was like the very, very first one that ever came out. And if you remember, there was like problems with them, and they had like SD ports that like the next ones didn't have. And it was basically like a giant space heater. So
Yeah,
I am not
I
allowed.
had the first PS2 and it was like that too before they made the
Yeah.
Slim or whatever. It was like the
Yes. Yeah.
huge fucking one. So yeah.
Right. So I'm not allowed to play that because it makes the room like 1,000 degrees,
Oh my
and neither
god.
of us end up being able to sleep. And then I'm always just like, why did I play Fallout for 5 hours? So yeah. So mostly just recently it's been the Zelda and the Kingdom Hearts and the Banjo, the old N64 games, stuff like that. You know.
That's awesome. So
Mhm.
do you remember what got you into Star Wars originally?
I think there were two things. It was my dad. I think that he I think he brought up watching Empire Strikes Back, I want to say, when I was like really, really young. And I was like, Dad, what is this? And then he was like, yeah, watch it. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then I think shortly thereafter, my older brother got what was the N64 game called? Shadows of the Empire? Is that what it was?
I think there was a few that I
Okay,
didn't have an
so
N64, so I'm not sure on all the
okay.
games. I know they had the
I'm
pod racing game for
Oh,
N64.
yeah, I had that one too. Um, it's a funny thing about that game. When you play and you're pod racing, if you crash, they have these like stock screaming voices to like for dying,
Oh
and like
man.
for Anakin's, it's like just this little kid that they got to just like scream, and they put in the game, and it's just like ah, and it's like I would play the game and intentionally crash just so that I could hear that over and over and over again. It was
Oh my
amazing.
god. They're
So
remaking.
yeah,
They're remastering that, and I think releasing it for all platforms. I know at least the
the
Switch and
pod
stuff.
racing game.
Yeah. Why not?
Why?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
why not? It's what else is everybody doing right now? I mean, Shadows of the Empire was amazing though. That game, I'm sure any other Star Wars fans that are listening would agree. You play as a character named, man, I can't remember his name, but he looks like his name's Jeff. And I'm pretty sure it's not Jeff.
I'm
So
going to say it's probably not Jeff.
yeah, so like some of the levels are like I think there's only like 2 starfighter ones where you're flying, and the rest of them are kind of like you're exploring.
Grounded.
And yeah, and you do like Hoth, and you do I can't remember the name, but there's one level where you're like traversing through and you're fighting why am I blanking on names now that I'm actually doing the podcast? This is amazing. The giant ice snow creature that
Oh, the
murked
Wampas?
Wampas. Are they Wampa Stompas? Is that what it is?
Just
Are they just
Wampas.
Wampas?
Just
Okay, yeah.
Wampas.
So the Wampas, so like you're playing this one level where you're fighting Wampas, and like I remember those things were like terrifying in the game,
Yeah,
not
of
because of the
course.
way they looked, but because you had to shoot them like a million times for them to die. And
they're
that
huge.
right, and the thing would swing at you once and you're toast, right? So
Of
like
course.
you'd like come around a corner with like these terrible graphics, and there would be like a Wampa, and you'd be like ah, 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 and like try your best to kill it, and like back up and try to shoot it, and no matter what. But then at the end of the level was like Boba Fett, and that was like the most infuriating thing to try to beat. So I remember liking that game a lot because I had my older brother just beat all the levels for me so I could play them.
Hell yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it sucks because I didn't get into Star Wars games until really Fallen Order because I tried Battlefront 2 and I just didn't like it for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But I've heard all the old games are super sick, like Knights of the Old Republic and Force Unleashed, I think. Because that's one where you're a Jedi, and I've heard that Fallen Order is kind of like Force Unleashed, at least like the gameplay and stuff like that. But Force Unleashed is the one where you can choose to be, you could like go to the dark side, like you can do shit that makes you
Oh.
go to the dark side and stuff. With Force Unleashed, you can't, and that's not really a spoiler for the game. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
if you have played that game, I know you said you don't really like new games. I would play that game because the story's sick. So it's pretty much it takes place years after Episode 3, and Order 66 is like in full effect, and
Okay.
you were a Jedi Padawan, and now you're hiding in some like weird fucking planet, and then the Inquisitors end up coming to your planet because they heard from someone that there's a Jedi on there, and you do it to like
Ooh.
save people. You like reveal yourself and like escape and shit, and then you team up with 2 other people, and then you go off, and then the whole thing starts. The only thing that kind of sucks about it is you go to certain planets, and then you have to go back to those planets and then do more shit, and that's like kind
Huh.
of the biggest complaint of the game. I don't really care because I'm not like a huge video game guy, so I don't. The story was cool, so I have really nothing to criticize.
Yeah.
Um, but it's a cool game, especially if you like Star Wars. The story is very
Yeah,
cool,
no,
and
that's
you learn badass force abilities, all these crazy lightsaber moves and shit. So it's sick. And when you unlock all the shit, it's fucking dope because you're just like
yeah.
fucking force pushing everywhere, fucking throwing your lightsaber in circles, killing fucking stormtroopers and shit.
That
It's dope.
that sounds like yeah, that sounds like something that I would really fucking be into. So like that came out recently, right? Like
Yeah,
relatively?
in like the fall, I think is when it came
Okay.
out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
pretty.
because I remember someone talking about it. Usually what happens is I have a buddy who him and his dad buy all the new games whenever they come out. So I'll go over and like play them, and I'll be
Make
like,
sure
"Do
you
I
like
like
it.
this?"
That's
Yeah,
smart.
like I remember I I literally don't even remember the title of the game because I went over to play it with him a whole bunch, but because I was playing it so much there, I never played it at home. And I think it was the most recent game that had a Nazi zombies mode. Do you remember what that is?
Yeah, I have no
It was
idea.
like it had to be one of the Call of Duty games, something like that. I
Yeah,
don't know.
I've
But
literally never played any of the Call of Duties in my life.
okay, yeah, I was. That's the thing is, I was never huge into like aside from like the early James Bond games, I never got into like the military ones or anything like that. You know, I was more into the sci-fi stuff. You know,
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah,
It's weird because I don't know. I just remember as a kid, I had the 3 VHS box set of the original trilogy, and I don't
yep,
know why my parents bought it. Maybe because I was like into Batman and into like Power Rangers and stuff, and they were like, "Oh, you
yeah,
probably like Star Wars." I don't even know if they really like Star Wars, to be honest, because my mom doesn't really care about that stuff. Because I brought her to see The Dark Knight when it came out because I saw it like 3 times in theaters because
ooh,
Batman's my guy, and
yeah,
that's the best Batman movie ever made. So,
yep,
you know,
yeah,
so I was like, "You're coming. I don't care." And she's like, "Yeah." And she liked it, and she's seen some of the other ones, random
okay,
superhero movies, but she's not like into it. My brother's super into it. Who's a big Spider-Man kid. I love Spider-Man, but that's like his guy is Spider-Man. Where
yeah.
like Batman's my guy. But yeah, I don't know why my parents bought it for me, other than maybe they just thought I would like
That's interesting. I mean, there were things like growing up when I had like my fixations on like the Zeldas or the Kingdom Hearts or the Fallouts or whatever,
yeah,
I would kind of like hyper obsess over one thing and then kind of like the rest of it would fall by the wayside. So I,
yeah.
I kept getting in and out of Star Wars. So I remember that this is gonna sound terrible, but I had to do supervised visitation with my parents uh, at one point for a brief period of time. The relationship was strained. And so, in the office of the building that I used to have to go to be with one of my parents, the person, the head of the office or whatever, I guess to make kids more comfortable, had like the entire collection of all of the original action figures of Star Wars on her wall. Like I'm
Damn.
talking like the like ones that are like priceless now.
Oh
And
yeah,
so
they're
I
worth
remember being
so much money.
yeah. So I remember being like, dude, that is sick, man. And I was like 7. So at that point, I was like, okay, I want like the Star Wars action figures and stuff. So then like my parents started getting them. And I remember like one of my like fondest memories ever was like, because my dad was working all the time. He was always busy. I didn't see him a whole lot. So I remember there was one time that I like had all my Star Wars action figures out and I had like my stormtroopers. And I think for Christmas, I got like the AT-AT and the Rancor. So like,
Oh.
yeah. So I remember one time he like came to like play with me and he was like making the worst noises. And I was like, Dad, that's not even realistic. Come on. And it was, but it was
Amazing.
still like just the fondest memory that I have. So I think that was why I have like an affinity for Star Wars because that was something that I connected like with my dad on. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
for
really
sure.
cool.
Hmm.
Have you watched all the movies and all the shows or just select stuff?
All the movies, but only as far as the shows go, I've only seen The Mandalorian and I've seen like one episode of a CGI animated one
Oh,
where
Clone
Darth
Wars?
Maul, I think.
Or it might be
Um,
Rebels. Darth Maul's in
I
both,
oh,
so
oh he is okay.
yeah.
Which one is he like a spider?
Oh, Rebels.
Okay, so yeah, I saw one episode of that, and it was just so like
Oh,
I
wait.
realized when it was it. I don't know.
No, he might be a spider in Clone Wars too, because
Yeah.
it's between episodes 2 and 3, so it's after he gets cut in half. So he probably is a
Oh.
spider in Clone Wars too. It's I
Okay.
so for me, I it's the same. I've seen all the movies. I like obviously for people our age, late 20s, 30s and stuff, like the prequels were kind of our generation Star Wars,
Yes.
whether people love them or hate them or are indifferent about them.
Yep.
Those are the ones we grew up on.
Yeah.
And I just had the VHS and I just kept going as it went along. And then finally when I was super into nerddom in my young
Yeah.
adult years is when the new trilogy started coming out. And that's when I guess before this last movie, I realized I knew way more about Star Wars because I was always like, I like Star Wars, but I feel like I don't have enough knowledge. And I still don't compared to some of the other people who have read the books and everything. But I know a good amount of Star Wars, more than I thought I did. But Sam
Right.
would like ask me questions like leading up to the movie, and I was like, oh, well, wow, this and this, this. And I was like, wow, I guess I do know more than I thought.
Right.
But
Yeah.
so I started watching Clone Wars, and I'm almost into season 3 now, because it's
Okay.
weird, because it's very episodic, and now there's an order you can watch them in that's chronological, because for some reason some of the episodes are out of chronological order.
Like
Like
a Tarantino movie?
sort of,
That's
but it's a
weird.
TV show. It's very weird, and especially now, it all just ends up being like three episode arcs, and then it goes to
Okay.
it's like 3 episodes are like a main overarching story, pretty much.
Huh.
It's like a big event that continues on, and then it goes. It's all in the same world, obviously. It's all in that period between episode 2 and episode 3. But then it like just goes to the next story, and then like the next, at least the ones I've been watching now, it's been like 3 episode arc, 3 episode arc, 3 episode arc, and
So
now
you're watching them now?
yes, yeah, I'm
Oh, okay.
almost to season 3, and there's
Okay.
the 7th season is now. That's why because everyone is praising this last season, so I want to get to that.
7 seasons. Wow.
Yeah, they didn't have seasons for years, but then the whole Disney Plus thing happened, and the guy who did The Mandalorian with Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, he's the
Yeah.
director behind Clone Wars and
Oh,
Rebels.
so it's probably good.
Oh yeah, it's awesome. It's not as like serialized. It gets there, but everyone says after the first couple seasons, that's when it starts really getting like really really good. And it
Okay.
has Ahsoka Tano, the who's Anakin's Padawan.
Oh.
She's like the
Whoa, this is
alien.
part of the story that I do not know. Hold on.
Oh, okay. So she's an alien Jedi apprentice, and she's a teenager, I think, in Clone Wars.
Okay.
And then she comes back in Rebels, and Rebels is, I believe, it's a few years before A New Hope. It's like 5 years before A New Hope.
Is this the character that has like the head things, like the two,
Yes.
like?
Yep.
Yeah.
The
Okay. So
orange. Yeah, you've
yes.
definitely seen. She's so popular, and
Yeah.
this is crazy. This is going to make you excited because she got announced that she's going to be in season 2 of The Mandalorian, and it's the
Really?
first time she's ever been live action, other than the person who voices her in Clone Wars and Rebels. Her
Right.
voice is in The Rise of Skywalker in the last part of the Be With Me Jedi part.
Is that who it is?
Yeah,
No way.
there's a bunch of Clone Wars and Rebels Easter eggs or like voices in
Yeah.
that, and obviously you hear like Ewan McGregor and
Yeah.
Samuel Jackson as Mace Windu and shit like that. You hear like
Yeah.
all the Qui-Gon Jinn, all of them. You hear everyone.
Right.
So it's like everyone fucking there.
So the thing is, my memory on the most recent movie is fuzzy. Admittedly, at the time, that's the only movie that I've only seen once, and it was because at the time, I don't remember if I went into the movie like in a bad mood or something, but I remember really not liking it.
Really?
And yes, dude, and that's the thing is that like I made my ranking order thing, and when I was making it, I was like, I think I actually have to go back and watch every single one of these movies with like a fresh perspective.
Oh
Because
yeah,
I
it's important.
realized the current opinion that I have is that the Jedi are actually the villains. I'm telling you,
Yeah,
dude,
know.
I got like everything's all twisted around right now. That's why I was gonna tell you that like my favorite movie is The Last Jedi.
That's
But
up there for me.
but tied for first, probably Revenge of the Sith, because as you mentioned, that was the period of time where we were kids. I think that movie was 2005. So
Yeah,
I
it's
was
all early mid 2000s for those.
yeah.
Much.
So I think 2005 I was, let's see, yeah, I was 12. So my don't remember why, but my that was the year that my little brother was born, and I remember my mom decided to bring a newborn baby to the movie theater because obviously
Oh no.
I wanted to see the movie, and we got through I think maybe 20 minutes of it. So I was just like, dude, what the? So I didn't get the theater experience for that last movie.
Yeah.
So, but then when it came out on, I think VHS or DVD at the time, I don't remember.
Probably be DVD, I would think then.
That was like the transition period,
Yeah.
So when it finally came out, I was like, dude, Oh my God. So tied for first, I would say, is either Last Jedi or Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, I love Revenge of the Sith, and you definitely need to rewatch the new one because it is awesome. It definitely ties the whole thing together. It's
Okay.
kind of rushed in a way because it kind of had to be because
Yeah.
that's we'll probably get into this, but if you sat me down and go pick your favorite trilogy, which is probably the most hot take like
Yeah.
Star Wars opinion and it would be
Yeah.
hated by tons of Star Wars fans. But
Oh yeah.
I probably like the new trilogy overall better than all of them. And this is why.
Okay.
The characters in it are the best. The character development is the best, bar none, compared to all the other ones. And they even took the old characters and gave them more character development than I think they did in their own trilogies. But the thing that it lacks, which sucks because it's under Disney. I hate people who say Star Wars ruined Disney because that's not fucking true. Because people
You mean the
who,
other way around? Disney ruined Star Wars?
yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
because so many people hated the prequels until the new movies come out, and now they're like, "Oh no, the prequels aren't that bad." Disney ruined Star Wars, which is whatever. Who gives a fuck? It's the problem is they didn't have an overarching plan for all three movies, and that's what suffered the most from the newest trilogy. If they did that and had all these awesome characters within it, I
Yeah.
think it would have been mind blowing. It probably still wouldn't have appeased everyone, but I think it would have flowed better a little bit. But
I
because
yeah.
the only trilogy that had a complete vision was the prequels. And that's it. Because the
Yep.
original trilogy, they thought it was going to be one movie, and that was it.
Yep. That was
And
just
then
the first one was originally just called Star Wars.
yeah, and then it took off, and then it ended up becoming what it was. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I love Kylo Ren. I think he's the best villain, which obviously he gets redeemed. But
Yeah.
because the thing he's unpredictable and he's played with both sides. Like I know obviously Anakin did the same thing when he became Vader. He was, a Jedi master or apprentice and then turned to Darth Vader. But the thing that's different is that he turned to save Padme. You know what I mean?
Right.
He did it to like help out in a way, which is
Hmm.
weird. He just got tricked anyway.
Yes.
But Kylo turned because he felt betrayed and he wanted to get back at, he's like, this isn't the right way. I'm just going to do it. And throughout the whole trilogy, he fights between light and dark the same way of what Rey does. And that's the interesting part to me because I don't know, I've had so many weird arguments with people in person or on Twitter about like, who is Rey? What is her motivation? And I was like, she's just trying to find her place in the world. And then she eventually does. And it's crazy. And people probably don't want to hear this, but guess who was the chosen one? Oh, it was Rey. Suck it,
Yep.
nerds.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So it's like, the thing is too, is that like the internet amplifies
Oh, yeah.
negativity, right? So I think that a lot of the people that are saying that the sequel trilogy is the worst thing that happened and Disney ruined Star Wars are the same people that now love new metal and used to hate it up until now because now it's okay to say that you like it. Because here's the thing, motherfucker. I was repping Limp Bizkit all throughout the 2010s and Papa Roach and all my bands that I like have listened to since I was a kid when it was not cool. I used to get in fights with people about it all the time. I was not a cool kid, I wasn't into fucking the crunkcore or the, whatever it was. So I was always jamming new metal and, bench pressing to Rolling by Limp Bizkit and this and that. And everybody was always like, that's fucking stupid. And then in the last like year or two, it's all of a sudden the news websites are like painting the new metal bands in a more positive light. And it's like, oh, okay. So I got made fun of my whole life for no reason.
I feel you there. It's weird because I didn't get made fun of, but I just didn't care. I remember I had the yellow fucking Sony Walkman CD player and I would listen to Limp Bizkit in it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I remember the two bands that I very, very first started like actually loving when I was a kid were Papa Roach and Korn. And I remember across from my dad's work was this giant CD. I think it was a Tower Records. And I remember being like 5 and a new Korn album came out. And I asked my dad to go over there and get it for me. Because the only CD I had before that was, I think, Infest by Papa
Oh,
Roach.
okay. Yep,
And
yep.
I was in Catholic school at the time. Not Catholic, but it was the only like private school in the area. So that was where my parents sent me. So during silent reading in like 3rd grade or whatever, I was reading the Infest lyric booklet while all the other kids were reading like Captain Underpants or whatever it was. So my teacher my teacher walks past and like kind of like glances at it and sees like the lyrics to, you know, Last Resort or Blood Brothers or whatever
Oh
it was, and
no.
just snatches it out of my hand and was like, "Your parents let you read this?" And I was like, "Yeah." And so they, you know, principal called my parents and my mom was like, "Well, I guess I have to start getting you the clean version of whatever CDs you want now." And I was like, "Dude, are you
Oh
serious?"
no.
So that led to this whole thing where like the local CD shop, she had to have the clean versions like special ordered, and then I would get this like
Man.
the Sickness came out or this came out, and then I finally got into Slipknot, and then that's when I think that was when she kind of gave up. She was just like, "All right, man, he's gonna be into
Yeah,
what he's gonna be
whatever.
into." That's, you know, so like there was no censoring you know, Slipknot, because, you know, when you start off songs with like, "I want to slit your throat and fuck the wound," it's like, oh, okay,
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
there's
What are you gonna
how do
censor
we
with that?
exactly, yeah. um
Even if you censor fuck, you're still saying slit your throat in the beginning, so you
yeah,
can't really censor
so
that.
yeah, so I mean, I didn't necessarily get like, I was a scrapper growing up, so like anytime anybody had a problem, I would immediately just fight, because I had like issues when I was a kid, you know what I mean? So I didn't get like legit like lambasted or like made fun of for liking new metal, but like, you know, my friends would kind of tease me a little bit.
Oh yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
they'd be like,
It's being a
"Yo, dude,
kid.
yeah, we're gonna go to fucking Warp Tour or whatever." And this was like before I got into the Warp Tour band, so I'd be
Oh,
like, "Yeah,
okay.
you have fun. I'm going to Mayhem Festival," which was like my first concert ever, and I had to sneak out to go to it.
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah, it was 2008, and I remember walking in, and I was by myself. Because I was never allowed. My mom was like extremely overprotective, so like I had to sneak out, make my way to the amphitheater, and as soon as I walked in, I remember walking through this crowd of people, and I look, and I see Suicide Silence playing with the giant The Cleansing artwork behind them,
Oh
and I was
man.
like, "This is what I need," you know what I mean? Like that
Damn.
was, so that was it for me. That was when I was like, metal is my thing. That's it.
That's sick. So
Yeah.
let's get into the rankings. We'll just list them off and
Okay.
then we'll talk about it.
Okay.
Do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
I feel like I probably have the more controversial take on this, so you go first.
Oh, mine starts non-controversial and then probably it's so funny because my friend and I talk Star Wars. When The Last Jedi came out, we've had plenty of arguments about why it's good and why it's not good. I love that
Okay.
movie. He hates
Me
that
too.
movie. But
Okay.
it's so funny because almost everyone who hated The Last Jedi, I thought would, especially after watching The Rise of Skywalker, I was like, they're going to fucking hate it. And they're all like, no, I actually really liked it. It blew my mind. It blew my mind. It made zero sense to me, but whatever. So my list is Empire Strikes Back, number 1, Last
Okay.
Jedi, Revenge of the Sith,
Yep.
and Rise of Skywalker, Rogue One, Force Awakens, Return of the Jedi, Phantom Menace, A New Hope, Solo, Attack of the Clones. And let me end this with, there is no Star Wars movie that I hate or dislike. There is problems with all of them, pretty much, for the most
Yeah.
part. It's Star Wars. It's a crazy fucking space drama with laser
Yeah.
swords.
Yep.
They are not meant to be some crazy, thought-provoking
No.
masterpieces of film.
Yeah.
and
No.
I
So,
hate and I hate that people try to dissect them like that. It is
yeah.
stupid. For one, you're just a guy on fucking Twitter. Yes, you are entitled to your opinion. I'm not going to knock you for your opinion, but you
Yeah.
are not a movie critic. So please do not come at these movies like you're a movie critic. You're just a dude who
Not
likes
only
these
that,
movies.
it's like, why are we dissecting this as if it were some, like, it's a movie about space wizards for kids?
Yeah,
Like that's
literally
what it is.
they're literally magic.
Yeah. It's hey, dude, not real. We're not watching a movie about 9/11. We're watching a movie about space wizards. Relax. So,
Yes.
but it's funny because your list is actually not that different from mine. I mean, there are some differences here, but the thing is that I have 2 tied for first, and then 4. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of tied for last, only because I'm like relatively indifferent about them. As in,
Okay.
like, I watched them and they didn't evoke something intense, so I kind of was just like whatever about it, you know.
Right.
So tied for first, I have Last Jedi and Revenge of the Sith. Self-explanatory. Second, Empire Strikes Back. Third, A New Hope. Fourth, Phantom Menace. Because I did rewatch that movie within the last few years and didn't hate it anywhere near as much as I thought I was going to.
It's weird. I don't want the rankings to affect how I feel because I feel like the middle could all switch depending on
Yes.
what day it is. I just looked at it today and just did what I felt today, and that's how it rolled.
Yeah, exactly. No, same here. Same here. I mean, like, so if I have Phantom Menace as fourth, I don't know. I could redo this list a year from now, and it could be way higher, way lower. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I got fifth is Return of the Jedi. Sixth says Force Awakens, and then I wrote last Rise of Skywalker, Attack of the Clones, Rogue One, Solo.
Interesting.
That's so. I mean, okay, very funny story. So I was doing a band called Divination for a while, and we played at the premiere of Rogue One
What?
at a movie theater. Yes. So this is like, it's this crazy historic movie theater in a city called Alameda, which is kind of near Oakland. And it's like this ginormous, like legit, it's shaped like an old music venue, but it's a movie theater. So like, it's got a stage, but it also has the giant screen, right? So like,
Huh.
we got on the stage and we played like 2 original songs, and then we played the Imperial March. So I was
Damn.
like, I was doing vocals in a stormtrooper costume, and the rest of the dudes were like Jedis or Darth Vader or whatever. And then for the Imperial March, I went out and I like rigged up a snare drum, and I was doing the thing because I started as a drummer, right? So I did that, and then watched Rogue One. So
Damn.
I'm pretty sure the reason that I didn't like love that movie very much is because I was just out of gas from like playing. But I do remember the ending scene being like ill as shit. I was
Yo,
like,
the
dude,
ending
oh my
is
God.
so I remember seeing that in theaters and then it ends. There's a few movies where the ending has actually shocked me. Most of them are kind of they happen to be Marvel movies because they do something that I never thought they would. But it was the same
Yeah.
with that, is that I did not, because that's the thing with Star Wars is they haven't really taken risks. I mean, obviously the originals took risks, but that's a whole different time period because they they changed the game
Yeah.
100%.
I
And
was, I was thinking about that because I was like, Empire Strikes Back is obviously like a huge movie for everyone, but what would it have actually been like to see that revelation sitting in a movie theater in
oh,
1980 whenever it
oh
came
my,
out or whatever?
because that
You
was
know what
like
I mean?
one of the first big, swerves in a movie ever. Like
Twists.
it
Yeah.
made swerves popular,
Yeah.
and that it's hard to compare to that. But for newer ones, they didn't really take risks. Like with the prequels, the ending,
Yeah.
regardless of what happens in the middle, the end result of the
Yeah.
prequels.
This is where it's going.
And
This is what it's about.
so for especially a Disney movie, a Disney Star Wars movie to kill everyone in the end, crazy and awesome.
Yeah.
So, but I feel like The Last Jedi was the first Star Wars movie to be like, hey, we're going to do things a little different because this is the crazy part why there's so much hate for The Last Jedi, because Force Awakens came out, awesome, gave you those old school Star Wars vibes. Like
Yeah.
it felt like an OG Star Wars movie that it just updated, which how it should. And
Yeah.
that's my biggest, I think, thing with the prequels. The CGI stuff just kind of kills some of it. That's why Attack of the Clones is so bottom, because some of the battles and shit are sick, but there's some parts in that movie where it looks like the animated Clone Wars show, but it's a live action movie, which
Dude,
is
the
crazy.
thing is, I've watched that movie like 4 or 5 times. And like still to this day, there are only like 2 actual scenes that I remember from it that I like retained in my head. And One of them was when Anakin, Padme, and Obi-Wan are like tied up and they have to fight the creatures or whatever, right?
Yeah. The big battle in the
So
like the
that's yeah,
stadium thing.
that's scene number one that I remember. Scene number two that I remember is when Anakin slayed all of the sand people.
Yep.
That's all I remember from like a 3-hour movie. I don't know. Maybe I'm dumb.
Yeah,
But like
no,
I
there's
just
like the middle is kind of whatever because it includes that part, but then it includes Obi-Wan discovering Geonosis and the clones and all that shit. So it's and there's this
okay.
weird battle with him and Jango Fett that's fucking god awful. But like I said, I do not hate any Star Wars movie. There is just parts that I don't like in Star Wars movies.
Yeah.
But so Force Awakens came out, but everyone's kind of like, oh, it's just like A New Hope. And for me, I think it's a better A New Hope because I don't really the ending. A New Hope is a great movie, but the ending is terrible. It's not a good ending. But again, it was supposed to be one movie.
Okay.
So,
okay.
But it's such a typical. It's just like, oh hey, we won. Here's medals. But then, so they blow up the Death Star in the first movie, and then, oh, just kidding, we have another fucking Death Star we're building already. You know, the events that come after immediately undo their victory in the first one. That's my issue with New Hope. But so everyone goes, hey, Force Awakens is basically A New Hope redone. Whatever. But people were still pretty positive on it. They're like, this was good. This was good. It made me feel like Star Wars.
Yeah.
So everyone's like, I want different. So boom, Last Jedi comes out. And everyone's like, what the fuck? I didn't want this. And it's like, yes, for different, we gave you different.
This isn't the different that I wanted. I mean, the thing is, I think part of the reason that I would say that The Last Jedi and Revenge of the Sith are my favorites are because of the fact that you ever seen Lord of War with Nick Cage?
No.
Okay, fantastic movie. Like so many like one-liner quotes that are like amazing and you could apply to everyday life. Definitely watch that when you get a chance. Okay. But there's a line in the movie where he says that they say that evil prevails when good men fail to act. What they should say is evil prevails. The reason that The Last Jedi and Revenge of the Sith are my favorite are because, like, in a way, evil prevails, which is like a different formula than like what most movies we see are. Like,
yes, I agree.
You have Luke, the person who like most of this entire saga is about.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. Dying. They're like, wait a minute, and then you have I can't remember the character's name, but she, you know, they send out all of the escape pods, and she decides to turn around. And that scene
Laura
where
Dern's character,
Laura Dern,
the hyperspace.
So, at the time, I was doing security for like movie theaters and like a bunch of like other government contracts and stuff. And I remember I was working at the time that The Last Jedi came out. And so I went to go see The Last Jedi on my own, and I was like, this is amazing. And then I went to go work at a movie theater like a week later. And it was like kind of near Oakland, and they had signs on all of the theaters that were playing that movie, and it said, disclaimer, there is a scene of about 5 seconds of silence this far into the movie, because apparently so many people were complaining and that scene was so shocking that they thought that the theater was broken because there's no sound.
Because they cut all the sound out. Yeah.
Because remember how hard that scene hits?
Oh,
like,
yeah, dude.
She flies into the ship and then just dead silence. Like, that was like such an amazing creative move. Like, for me, I guess. And so people like couldn't handle it, and they thought the movie broke. So they're like, what? And I guess so many people had complained to theaters and shit that they literally had to start putting disclaimers on the doors of the theater. Because
I do think I remember that. Oh, her name was Admiral Holdo too.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, but
that's right.
Yeah, dude, there's so many cool, creative takes or like ways they shot stuff in the in the sequel trilogy. I think in Force Awakens, there's a part where you see blue going over the massive Kylo Ren, then it ends up going to red. It's like just stuff like that is so fucking sick, and it's crazy because you're talking about how evil prevails. In the whole grand scheme of everything, Palpatine wins in the end, even at the end of Rise of Skywalker, because all the Skywalkers are gone. They're all gone. The Jedi are done because Rey's not even really a Jedi anymore. I don't think they make it seem like she's not going to train anyone. She is just kind of the equals of both light and dark.
Yeah.
And,
Gray or whatever they call it, right?
yeah, it's in like lore. It's like the gray Jedi. They don't like come out and say it, but yeah, like Palpatine wins. And I think a lot of people don't realize that, but yeah, like evil wins in the end, really. I mean, they win the battle and take out Palpatine and everything, but it costs them everything, really,
At what cost? Yeah, that's
to
the
make
thing.
it happen. Like
Yeah.
Leia dies. Pretty much the whole past dies of everything, which is ironically the whole theme of The Last Jedi. And plus, if you can say that throne room fight scene isn't one of the sickest fucking Star Wars fight scenes, you are wrong, because that shit is fucking badass.
We talk about Last Jedi right now. The scene with the red dude,
so dope.
I'm not even joking you. Like, I've tried to think of so many different ways to like literally just steal that imagery for a music video. Like,
it would be so hard to re-choreograph that.
I know. Well, not only that, I mean, like, just think about the sheer amount of money it would take. I mean, like,
God.
to have like the red, but like everything is burning around them while they're like, dude.
Yes.
And that's the thing, is that
sick.
at least for me personally, The Last Jedi had more of those like weird shot creative kind of things. Like, remember when Rey goes into the cave and then she's doing the snapping and then it's like everything's reversed, and like, so I loved that. I mean, the whole island, everything like that Luke was doing, and the weird like little helper people that like hated Rey because she kept screwing up. Just everything about that was amazing. There was really only one sequence of the movie that I didn't love, and it was the casino thing. But that was it. I mean, that's just like, okay, cool. I can go smoke a cigarette now. That's fine. Whatever.
Yeah, and it's funny because a lot of people hate how Luke is portrayed in that movie, but to me, it makes sense. Like, I don't know why everyone is like fan writing these movies as to Luke Skywalker being this perfect human being or something. Even in the original trilogy, he lashes out in anger to defeat Palpatine and Vader.
Yeah.
Like, he embraces the dark to win in the end. And it's like, why wouldn't this dude be so full of emotion? And he sees that he had a lapse of judgment, fails his fucking sisters and one of his best friend's son, and he turns to the dark side. You don't think that would turn him into isolation? It's like this. And I keep telling this to people that argue with me, and I'm like, he does the same thing Yoda did. Yoda fucked up because the whole thing of the prequels is they were too fucking cocky, and everything got taken from them because of their arrogance. They thought they were ahead of everything, and they weren't. And that's what fucked everything up. Well, obviously Palpatine manipulating everything, but they were so arrogant to not know that he was the one pulling the strings of everything, and everything got pulled from underneath of them. So he goes into seclusion. I mean, Obi-Wan does too. They all go, like, pretty much all the powerful Force users go into fucking hiding. So
that was the reason why, like, when earlier I said, like, I kind of feel like icky about the Jedi, and maybe the Jedi were actually wrong, is because, like, in these favorite movies of mine, you have Luke actually, like, he's the only one who knows the score. He's the one who's like, nah, this is actually the way that it went down, and this and that. And he's like, screw the texts, the Jedi texts, right?
Yeah.
And then you have, Obi-Wan in Revenge of the Sith. He's like, you were supposed to bring balance to the Force and this and that. Yo, he did. There's 2 Jedi and there's 2 Sith. There, right? I mean, in a way, like, you have.
Yeah, he was supposed to. Yeah, but he was supposed to bring a full balance, not take over the Republic, not help take over the Republic and create a new empire to take over.
So
that's the part where,
is that he kind of did, but not in the way that they wanted him to. Because the way that I see it, at least now, is like, I mean, I rewatched Revenge of the Sith, I think, a couple weeks ago, and when I was watching it, I couldn't help but kind of feel like, I was like, yo, the Jedi are kind of just like, they're asking him to commit espionage, right? I mean, like, so they might suspect that he's, like, there's political corruption, but like, that exists everywhere in the world. That's a regular thing of life.
Yeah.
So, they're asking him to commit espionage, and they're inserting themselves into these political issues and this and that. And then you have, like, you have Qui-Gon in the Phantom Menace saying, all right, we'll let this kid do this race, and if he wins or whatever, I get to take him. Why didn't you just threaten Watto's life? You should have just done that. Like, you could be like, hey, I'm like a crazy Jedi, and I could just kill you. Give me the kid, you know? And then he also did one thing where I don't remember who he was talking to, but Qui-Gon, he said something like, it was like, patience, my blue friend, or something. It's like, whoa, a little racist there, Qui-Gon. You know, like, I don't know. I just, I'm
Well,
rewatching it, and I'm kind of finding little things that I'm
no,
kind of like,
yeah.
hey,
I mean, the him killing it is kind of that, especially then, was kind of against Jedi. I mean, they didn't really attack unless because they're supposed to be peacekeepers, especially after.
supposed to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because it's kind of convoluted when you think about it, and it's funny
Yeah.
because in Clone Wars they really go into that hard because that's you're full on in the war. You know what I mean? And they go to all these places and they're like, well, you use your power and violence to kind of force this peace on some people and stuff. But I mean, their heart is in the right place. And even in season 2 where I'm at, you start seeing Anakin kind of push the boundaries of, because obviously it's after he kills all the sand people and shit. So,
Yeah.
he has that darkness in him. But there's some parts where he just like straight up just like kills motherfucker. And I just watched an episode where he just kills the dude, and Obi-Wan's like, Anakin, what? Like pretty much like, what the fuck, dude?
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah. That's dude. That's the thing is, it's like these, like, hey, we're the Jedi. Everything is supposed to be done through peace and and
but they always work smarter rather than go to fighting, and that's like the thing that is good about them in a way is they'll take the passive route before they go to the aggressive route, but if they need to get there, they'll fucking go there. Obviously,
I guess that's true. Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
So that's why I think, and he does trick Watto anyway because he flips the dice, to make it so
Oh yeah,
he
that's
would
right.
get them.
Okay. Yeah.
He like force
Yeah.
pushes
Yeah.
it. He's like, boop, gotcha.
Yeah. I guess the reason that I kind of see them as the instigators now more these days is just because of the fact that I like when the bad guys win. I don't know. It's like, like when, like in I guess it's the lore. There's like the Jedi code and then there's the Sith code.
Yeah.
Have you
Yeah,
seen those?
Yeah.
So okay, so there's one where it's like the Jedi code, the gray code, and then the Sith code, right? So
Yeah.
like I remember coming across those and thinking to myself, like, wait a minute, I identify with the Sith code way more than I do with the Jedi code. Like personally, like in my own life. I don't know, maybe that makes me terrible, but like I just do. Like
Yeah, I mean, and obviously Revenge of the Sith is high up on mine, and it's funny because I think it's high up on a lot of people's now because now people have like a newfound respect for the prequels. And like I said, I wish they took a more practical approach, like what the new movies did. They did,
yeah.
and that's kind of what a lot of movies do now. They'll do practical, but then add CGI just to make it perfect and everything.
Right.
Like Baby Yoda is a puppet, but they just CGI to make it look more lifelike. But it's a full on.
That was the
puppet.
thing about the Last Jedi was that in the Last Jedi they used Puppet Yoda as well. You know what I mean? That's when I was like, yes!
They made the whole transition from it with the new ones to go to back to puppet rather than CGI,
right?
Which
yeah,
sucks. I almost wish they would like like it would be impossible to do, but if they redid everything either with better CGI or like more realistic CGI, but it would cost
like
so much
remakes.
money.
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, because obviously, like Thanos. He doesn't really look like obviously he's a CGI character, but he looks like he fits in just with anyone else.
As it progresses, because if you remember, wasn't there a movie where there was like a hidden scene with Thanos like really early on, and he looked
he's
like
super purple and fuck yeah.
Yeah,
but that
was he was
yeah.
Which movie was that?
The first time he appears is the end credit scenes of Avengers, and then he returns.
Okay.
He returns in Guardians. A little
Yeah.
cameo in Guardians, and then he's also
where he's like on the throne.
Yep, and he talks to Ronan, and then he's also in the end credit scene of Age of Ultron, where he sticks his hand in the gauntlet and goes final.
He's like, "Oh, I'll do it myself." Yeah,
yeah, and he's more purple in like bright purple in those,
Right.
But yeah, I kind of meant like Infinity War and Endgame, like him and like Smart Hulk and even like the Iron Man suits and Spider-Man suits and everything. Like it looks like it would belong there along with just a normal person standing there, which is
Yeah,
crazy.
it's
So
the way they blended it. Yeah,
so
that was incredible.
oh, it's amazing. So they could kind of go back and redo it, I guess, but it would cost way too much fucking money for it just to be like, oh, it looks better, I guess. Who
And it's
knows?
funny because I remember reading that, George Lucas's reason for waiting to do the prequels was that he wanted to wait until a point where CGI was believable. And
I mean, at that point, it
you
kind of
watch it
was.
and you're like, I mean, sure, I guess over when A New Hope and, Empire Strikes Back came out, but like, yikes, dude.
Yeah, well, compared to now, I mean, then it was like, oh, holy fuck, because I
Cutting edge, of
watched,
course.
yeah, because I watched, I've been rewatching the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy because I'm doing an episode with someone else on those movies, like the good,
That's
the
Tobey
bad,
Maguire?
yeah, the good, the bad, and the
Yeah,
ugly
okay.
of those movies,
Yeah.
and with the first one, and the first one cost like $140 million to make. It was not a cheap movie. I mean,
Really?
in retrospect, now it's quote unquote cheap, I guess. But in 2002, it's not a cheap movie. And
No.
some of the parts, especially in the end fight scene, you can tell they're like, it's like a prop wall that's meant to get taken down and shit like that. Like looking at it now,
Okay.
I
Yeah.
watch so including the Star Wars movies, I've rewatched all of them because Sam didn't remember the prequels. So after Rise of Skywalker, we kind of went back and rewatched the OG trilogy and then rewatched the prequels.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe I watched Force Awakens and Last Jedi right before Rise of Skywalker came out just to get the full lead
Yeah,
up to it.
I have a friend who is actually like my best friend. He's like definitely the biggest Star Wars nerd that I know. He's like one of those like I fly to all the conventions they have every year and all that.
Oh,
You know
hell
what I
yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
He owns like 30 Star Wars shirts. He'll watch the whole saga like once every couple months. So like I'll randomly get a text message like, "Yo, we're doing Phantom Menace tonight. You want to come over?" And I'm like, "Hey, dude, like, didn't this just happen?" Like, I'm not that into it. Like, I'm like, I love it, but like, that's
Yeah.
a little much.
I've
So
rewatched a lot of these movies. By this time, kind of a lot. I
yeah,
think.
I've seen every movie a couple times except
Right.
for the most recent one, and I think that's why I have to, like it takes me a couple times to actually see
Yeah.
something and really retain it.
I
Like
think if we rewatch it with an open mind, you'll definitely enjoy it because it does such a cool way of kind of tying up all of it.
yeah,
Not a completely satisfying way, but it's cool. It wraps up
yeah,
everything in a nice little bow. There's a ton of callbacks, especially to the prequels and the original trilogy that are at least were satisfying to me. It
yeah,
just sucks because some of the moments after seeing Endgame months prior, I
yeah.
was like, okay, like yeah, they wrapped it up, but they didn't wrap it up like that. But at the same time, they didn't
No,
have,
yeah,
for one, they didn't have a Kevin Feige being the backbone plan of the whole thing, which I brought up earlier. I think that's the
yeah,
biggest flaw of the newest movies is there wasn't. It's so weird because I don't understand how, especially being within Disney, how they just didn't go, hey, because this is what Marvel does. They usually go, hey, this is what we're leading to. You need to include at least this and this, and then do your thing. They should be
yeah.
like, for each movie, especially if they're going to have different ones for each one, because originally it was a different. I think
A different director for every
Yeah,
one of them. Yeah,
JJ was supposed to do the second one, and then he couldn't do it or whatever.
something happened. Yeah,
There's a lot of drama with that shit, but
yeah,
at one point it was going to be a different one for each one. Be like, yo, you need to include this to continue the overarching story, and I think JJ did a good job of because a lot of people say he undid what stuff like things in the Last Jedi, which I completely don't agree with because the whole premise of Kylo and Rey would not be the same without everything that happened in the Last Jedi.
so maybe there's something you could
I don't
explain
know.
to me because I'm kind of like weird about it, right? So you have Snoke, okay?
Yeah.
So it turns out that Snoke was actually a puppet for the Emperor,
Yes.
right? Okay. If this were the case, why was Rey ever allowed to do what she did in the first place? As in, wouldn't maybe I misheard or am misremembering, but isn't there a part where Palpatine kind of like knew everything that was happening all along?
Yeah.
So were that the case, why didn't he just go murk Rey in the beginning, or did he want her to come to him?
He did, yeah, because there's a whole part where he wants. So this is where it gets super weird, because there was like a book that came out that explained that like back explained some of the stuff in the movie. It's kind of fucking ridiculous. But
all right.
So the biggest thing which I wish they did was tease Palpatine in the first two to lead to him being there. Obviously, they're like, we need to wrap this up. So Palpatine's back, motherfuckers. What's up?
Yeah.
Which makes sense in the long run. He's been behind everything, literally everything.
But it would have been cool if it were alluded
just a little
to.
Tease. Least. Yeah, just a tease. And I love that Rey was a descendant of Palpatine. This is where it gets weird. So Rey's dad was a failed clone of Palpatine that didn't look like him. So it's super weird. So, and Palpatine in the movie was also a clone with his consciousness put back into it. They didn't really explain it, but that's what it is. Also,
so Palpatine in the movie is not Palpatine.
It's like the essence of him is Palpatine. Real Palpatine. Yeah. Like his body is not his body. It doesn't make any sense. But Star Wars, space magic.
True. Okay, that's fair.
And that's kind of the same thing with Snoke, because in that beginning, they kind of go, oh, hey, he was a fucking clone. Whatever. Mm-hmm. So I think that's why it didn't really matter. And the whole thing was to end up luring Rey to her for her to become like because in every trilogy, it's always he starts with an apprentice, but then he's really trying to bait in someone to turn to make his new apprentice to become the strongest fucking, bad guy of all fucking time, which he succeeded with Vader, but then he tries to do it with Vader with Luke. And, obviously...
Because in the prequels, it's
Count Dooku.
Yeah.
Well, Maul, then Dooku, but whatever.
Yeah.
Maul, but Dooku's the one he baits to bring in Anakin. And then with this one, it's Kylo, but he's really baiting in Rey. Because that's in the whole thing, he's like, do what I want, and I'll give you all the power you ever want. But really, his main plan was to bring in Rey and fucking just take out Kylo, which is his plan in every fucking trilogy. But yeah, his whole thing is to bring in her, to turn her to the dark side and make her take the fuck over. And, and I do wish, because in one of the trailers, you see that she sees it in like a vision, the dark Rey with the crazy fucking, like hinged double-sided lightsaber. I do wish if, like we find out that it's the fucking consciousness that he like transfers his consciousness into a Rey clone, and she has to fight fucking her evil self. That would have been fucking crazy.
So so I did see a lot of complaints about that, because people were like, oh, well, they just baited us with that for the trailer. But here's the thing. Don't you remember that one part of, I believe it was Return of the Jedi, where Luke has the vision of himself in the Vader head?
Yeah.
I see it as kind of the same thing as that. So it's like, sure, they could have done something more sick with it, but it's kind of just like that one thing they did that one time. You know what I mean?
Exactly. It's so funny, because pretty much any complaint people can put in the sequel trilogy, I can point to literally something in the original trilogy that would be the same exact thing, and people would just be like, no, it's way different. And I'm like, it's the same thing. But whatever.
besides maybe The Last Jedi, because that was the movie that I felt like where they took a lot of risks for, things that didn't happen in the other Star Wars movies, like it was like, at least for me, it was like really refreshing. And it was kind of like everything kind of getting turned on its head. And it's like, oh, this savior that they've painted as a savior, Luke, is kind of just like, nah, man, fuck all that shit. Fuck all them people. All that shit's, because he failed everything and this and that. So again, that brings me back to the whole like evil prevails thing, because this person that is like this legend in the galaxy is kind of just like, no, that's all wrong.
Sort in a way, I mean, he ends up teaming up, and he helps win. Yeah, he helps win the battle.
Thing, that's like and it's supposed to be like the illest thing that any Jedi has ever done, and it kind of was, because he's
so many people
Ren's
downplay that,
and then why? That's like,
I don't know. It's so badass.
That's like the crux of, like, I mean, again, there's the throne room scene, which is like, for me, that's like hard to top in the entire saga. But then there's the astral projection thing on the salt planet.
Yeah. That and the Revenge of
It's
the final fight in Revenge of the Sith are probably at the top for lightsaber battles for me.
on Mustafar. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that shit is fucking brutal. The only thing that sucks about that movie is
And then
it kind of everything kind of happens really fast. He kind of goes from conflicted to killing younglings a little too fast for me, but
yeah.
it's all right.
See, so that's the reason that I like that movie so much is because Revenge of the Sith has like, all right, these are obviously movies like mostly geared towards children audiences.
Yeah,
Oh my God, he's literally like killing children, and
all of them.
holy crap, all of his body parts were just cut off, and he is burning on screen, and he's like literally just getting
Brutal,
maimed, and like it was brutal,
brutal.
you know. So that was why I was like, dude, yeah, that movie for sure is like way up there. And then they're building him into Vader, and he's just like screaming in agonizing pain.
Then he
And
finds out
then
Padme dies, and
right, but then the Emperor tells him like that he's the reason she's dead,
yeah,
and
yeah.
it's like, dude,
Which I
oh
mean,
my God,
he was.
he was right. It's like it's because I mean, well, I'm trying to remember the whole thing of like him getting to Mustafar. Doesn't he like push her or something? Isn't it like a
There's a weird thing where he kind of pushes her away, and that's when he starts getting super like immersed with the dark side and kind of
yeah?
scares her. But then she obviously knows because Obi-Wan goes back when she's giving birth and everything, and she knows like what he's become,
Mm-hmm.
and she dies because she gives birth, and it's like she doesn't want to live anymore because the one thing that mattered to her is fucking an evil piece of shit, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So then yeah. I mean, he did kind of because like she lost her will to live as a result of what he did, which
Yeah,
would imply that yeah, I mean, he is the reason she's dead. So
yeah.
you know.
So there's a ton of Star Wars things coming up. Mandalorian season 2. They already announced that season 3 is like a go. Season 2 is already done. It's like it's in the fucking can.
Post.
They're just editing it and everything,
Oh, okay.
and it's coming out in October. And then they already said
Stoked.
season 3 is in development. And there's a Obi-Wan show that's coming out in a few years that's going to be pre
A
I
New
think
Hope,
it's like
maybe.
post, yeah, it's pre A New Hope, post Rebels, I believe. It's like right
Okay.
before then. And then there's a Cassian Andor show, the guy from Rogue One. It's like 5 years before Rogue One, kind of alluding that there might be multiple seasons in that. And
Mm.
they just announced that there's going to be a female-led Disney Plus show that's being helmed by the person who created Russian Doll, which is this crazy show on Netflix. If you haven't
I
watched
haven't
it,
seen that.
it's one of the main girls from Orange is the New Black stars in it, but it's this crazy
Okay.
show where she keeps reliving the same day over and over. So it's like
Yeah.
kind of like the Groundhog Day, Happy Death Day, whatever kind of thing. It's very cool. Okay,
Yeah. Russian Doll sounds. That sounds sick.
it's cool. So they're doing it's female led, but they haven't announced what it's going to be, which some people are alluding it could be Ahsoka Tano because they announced that Ahsoka was going to be in the Mandalorian season 2, which is
Right.
super fucking cool. But
Yeah.
there's rumors floating around that she's going to show up in different series throughout
Mm.
time because she is
Okay.
one of the only characters that's kind of existed, kind of like Obi-Wan, but she's been there throughout the whole entirety of everything. Because obviously
Mm.
there's I don't want to spoil it for you if you don't know, because
Go
obviously
ahead.
so in Clone Wars, I don't remember the exact details, but there's something that happens where she gets tried against the Jedi Council
Mm.
for something, and she gets like banished from the Jedi.
Okay.
And then they realize they fucked up and they ask for her back, but she's like, no, fuck off. You didn't believe me. I don't want anything to
Mm.
do with you. And that's why it kind of explains why she's not in episode 3 or didn't really show up. So she's kind of like in the outskirts. And the whole last season of they do it in Rebels too, because she comes back in Rebels, but the whole last season of the Clone Wars and Rebels kind of explain like what she's been doing and why she's not in the forefront. And the coolest
Yeah.
thing about all these series is that it's such a huge fucking world, and we've only seen bits and pieces throughout the main stories because you're always focused on that overarching story of the Skywalker saga, where you don't see where all this stuff. That's why Mandalorian is so fucking cool to me, is because you're just seeing in this fucking crazy the outer rim of the fucking solar system, and you're
Yeah.
seeing all this fucked up, like underground fucking empire shit and fucking stormtroopers and all that stuff. Super fucking sick. So I
Yeah.
love seeing all these different takes in the Star Wars world. Like, they feel like Star Wars, but they're totally different.
Right.
And
That was the thing with Mandalorian, is that was kind of the first thing outside of the saga, or like that wasn't a video game, that I kind of really like
yeah,
tried to immerse myself with. That's why and it came out, honestly, I think it was fantastic. So I was watching The Mandalorian, and I was like, all right, this is the first thing that's like legit outside of the main saga that I'm really honestly going to give a solid chance to, and I loved it. So I was like,
it's
okay,
amazing.
yeah,
It's probably honestly, it might be my favorite Star Wars thing of
wow,
anything.
okay,
Yeah,
well,
just 'cause
that's fair.
I don't know. I just really like it.
Yeah,
But it's cool now because all the stuff I'm getting into in Attack of the Clones is starting to all make sense of stuff in the Mandalorian. Because in the
mm,
end where Moff Gideon cuts open the TIE fighter with the black, it's called the Darksaber.
yes, yeah,
So I just got to the part where you first see it in Clone Wars. It's like the first appearance of it.
oh,
Fucking so, because it came from Mandalore, which is obviously the planet where the Mandalorian
right, yeah,
culture is born, and
yeah,
you see it first come up, and it's like meant to like kill Jedi, which is like fucking so sick. But the thing
yeah,
is, we still don't know how Moff Gideon got it, because
okay,
there's a part, I think, in Rebels where you see where it kind of left off from there. So I think they're
mm,
gonna, and there's like a whole thing where Darth Maul had it for a while too. So there's like a
ooh,
storied history with it. So I'm stoked that I'm finally getting into that stuff where it's like linking all the Mandalorian stuff, like not even just the show, but all like the Mandalorian culture. It gets like deep into that shit. Like, there was just an episode, or it was like one of the 3 episode arcs, but it's young Boba Fett, obviously
mm,
post his dad getting his fucking head chopped off, where
right,
he sneaks in with some of the kids of the clones, because
okay,
he looks like all of them, because he is a clone of his dad, just like all of them, but he is made so he grows up like a normal person, where the
right,
other clones, they rapidly grow. So he sneaks in with them, and he tries to kill Mace Windu, because Mace Windu killed his dad. It's like this fucking child trying to murder
yeah,
a
yeah,
fucking
yeah.
Jedi. It's pretty wild, especially for an animated TV show.
That's the thing. It's like, it sounds to me like like actually like getting into all the other stuff like Rebels or Clone Wars and stuff is actually like rewarding, because in
For
terms of
sure, it
the main
definitely is,
story.
especially after watching all of it and then getting into it now. Because I think so many people were like, "Oh, he's probably already watched Clone Wars for me," and I was like, "No, I haven't. I just never got into it." And then with Disney Plus, it's like it's all right fucking there. But there's so much fucking
Mm.
content to consume anyway. Even with the extra free time we have now, it's still like hard to
To me, it's like,
to
yeah, it's like
consume it
daunting,
all.
because it's weird, because like I have all the time in the world, but yet like each day I have to decide whether I'm going to consume media or like make it myself. You know what I mean? Because like
Same.
if I want to take another pass at vocals for a song or whatever, that's like a 3 hour thing, because I
Oh
have to like
yeah.
warm up the voice. I got to do my ritual. I got to, like actually record the vocals. Then I got to import them and edit them and this and that. You know what I mean? So it's like, all right, am I going to do that, or am I going to watch this 3 hour movie? So it's
Yeah,
crazy.
it's super, because obviously I have the podcast now, so I'm like recording or editing or
Right.
planning for future episodes or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
I still have design work I'm doing too, so it's balancing all of it. And
Yeah.
now with certain stuff, I'm having to rewatch certain things to have it fresh in my mind, or I've been taking like hardcore notes. Like I was talking about
Yeah.
doing the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. I'm taking like insane notes to talk about that. So
Yeah.
that'll be a
Side
super
note, hilarious thing about that trilogy, and I mean, like, keep him. What year did the second one come out?
2004, I think.
Okay, so wait, so then it wasn't the what year did the third one come out?
2007.
2006, 2007.
7,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's so the hilarious thing about that was that I don't remember any of that movie at all, because I got my first girlfriend and I got head in the theater, and I had to literally like try to rewatch that movie so many times, and it never happened. So I don't know what happens.
Don't. It's like it's bad. It's very bad.
It's bad. Okay, so
It's
then I don't.
terrible.
Okay, cool.
It,
So
it
then I'm
does a
glad
good
that I
job
didn't.
of wrapping up the trilogy, but
Mhm.
there was a lot of in studio infighting with he was
Yeah.
like I want Sam Raimi was like I want to take it this direction, and the studio was like no, you need to add this stuff in, and it kind of ruined it because Venom's
Mm,
in it, but he didn't
yeah.
even he was like I don't really like Venom and I don't think I'll do the character justice, but they're like we don't care, you're having him in the movie, and it's awful. It's like one of the biggest letdowns. Like
I
it's
do. I do remember thinking that like, what part was I actually looking at the screen for? There was. I think I saw that the guy from that '70s show was the character,
yeah, he's
and I
Eddie
was
Brock
like,
in it. Yeah,
okay.
doesn't make any sense.
And I do remember actually seeing like black suit stuff, and I remember that his hair was like emo, right?
Yeah, he becomes like
Um,
an emo dick for no apparent reason. I
yeah.
also
So
it's wild because I like the first two movies. There is parts of it that don't really stand up just because of how things have progressed, especially in the superhero genre. But
mhm.
I also hate Tobey Maguire. I think he's one of the worst actors ever. I think he's terrible.
You'll
And the
get your rent
fact
when you fix this damn door.
so the fact that I still like those movies, even though I totally despise that actor, is a pretty big accomplishment, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, no, that says something for sure. What? How did you feel about Venom, the
Okay,
movie?
so it's complicated. Not
Okay.
really, but so the movie's okay, but I loved Tom Hardy as Venom. The weird
Yep.
parts are very Venom because if you read Venom comics, they're fucking weird. They're super
I have
weird.
heard that. I haven't read them, but I have heard that it's like consistent with the way that he's supposed to be.
It's very weird, and I love Tom Hardy. I think he's amazing, and him as Venom because I know all the superhero stuff ends up building to stuff. So
Okay.
watching that performance and everything
Yeah.
and the look of it was still cool. It still bummed me out that Spider-Man was in it because the reason that he shapes in that form is because of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Because
It's kind of. It's yeah.
he comes to Earth through space like the movie did, but he comes attached to Spider-Man because of this crazy intergalactic event. But that whatever, I can get past
Ah.
that and
Okay.
whatever. But like it would have been
They tweaked the
cool.
origin a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been sick if even it attaches to him, and the first time it forms is after you see, like, he walks by, like whatever store, and there's a TV in the storefront, and it shows Spider-Man swinging, and that's how he forms. There's a perfect
Mm.
point. Vision in Age of Ultron when he comes out, he makes a cape because he sees Thor with a cape, so he like copies it.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it would have been cool to see it happen that way, and like,
Something like
oh
that. Yeah.
yeah, but that's me nitpicking. But the big problem with that movie is it's almost like two movies happening at the same time, and at the end they just kind of smash together, and then there's the ending, and that's why I didn't like.
Yeah.
There's like funny moments, and like I said, I really enjoy Tom Hardy as Eddie Brock and Venom, but in the end fight scene sucks. It's just CGI clusterfuck nonsense.
Yeah, yeah, that is true. But you know what's funny though is that like I saw that movie and then I was like, you know what, this is not a terrible movie.
No, not a
Um,
terrible movie. I like
but
the movie. I just don't
the
love it.
the only thing that I've seen from any of the what is the other dude who plays Spider-Man's name? Not
Oh,
not
Andrew Garfield
yes,
or Tom Holland?
the Andrew Garfield. The
Okay.
only thing that I've seen from any of the Andrew Garfield movies was something that someone showed me that was funny. Okay. And what happened was they were like, yo, you got it. I was like, I haven't seen any of these movies. I'm just not huge on that actor, whatever. I'm not going to watch him. I know I'm just going to not like him, so I'm going to avoid it. Someone was like, no, you really got to see this part. And I was like, okay. All I saw was Gwen Stacy falling and like snapping her neck in the
Oh
most
yeah.
hilarious way. And
Yeah.
I thought that that was the funniest thing that I'd seen in like 6 months. I don't know
They,
why. I just, again, maybe I'm terrible. I have no soul, but I was just like, that's fucking funny.
out of context, I could see it being funny. In
Yeah.
context, they did a good job of making it like a tragic thing, which
Okay.
those movies aren't terrible either. They're just not great. The second movie kind
Okay.
of sucks other than that part. Like Jamie Foxx is Electro, and the design of it just looks fucking stupid. He's like a
I like
blue.
him as an actor for sure, but
Oh, Jamie
that's,
Foxx is amazing. It's
yeah,
weird. I don't know. Tom Holland's the best Spider-Man. I don't give a fuck. Whatever.
that's fair. I mean, I could see it. I mean, like, I don't have the context of Andrew Garfield, but I'll take your opinion on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how I end all these, I end it with something called Metalcore Minute. So it's a minute, and you get to talk about, you pretty much just list off anything you're into currently.
Okay.
So are you ready for this?
I maybe.
Okay, go.
All right. I recently, in the last year, I have been into Star Trek. I got into Star Trek. Okay. I've watched Deep Space Nine, Next Generation, some of the original stuff. The Chernobyl 5-part series thing was literally one of the most amazing things I've seen ever. I watched Annihilation a whole bunch of times. I've rewatched the newest Blade Runner. In terms of music, I've been listening to that new Ghost Inside song made me happier than anything in the world.
Same.
The new Trivium song is sick. I cried. The new Ghost Inside made me cry. I've been listening to some dark jazz stuff from Germany called Bo Ren and Der Club of Gore. Super dark, weird. Type in a song called Maximum Black. New Vinnie Paz
10
album.
seconds.
Oh God, July Talk, Calm Trues. That's all I got. Yeah.
Perfect. That was a minute.
CSI.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that Chernobyl thing, the showrunner for that is doing a HBO series on The Last of Us, the video game. And that made me get into the game, other than people praising it, obviously. But watching the storyline through that game, it's going to be so fucking sick.
I haven't played it. I know nothing about it, but just you telling me that makes me want to play it now.
If you have
crazy?
Dude, it's so sick. And you fucking kill zombies. It's kind of fucking hard. Obviously, I'm not good at video games, so it's hard to me. But there's parts where you have to kill everyone, including. I don't think there's ever a part you have to kill all the zombies. Maybe there is, but no, there is parts where you have to kill all the zombies. But it's hard to differentiate the parts where you can sneak by shit or the parts where you have to fucking mow down everyone. But the storyline is super cool. And the farther you get into it, it gets more like human heavy than zombie heavy. It's just, and it's on PS. I think to buy it on the PlayStation Online thing, it's like $15. So that's why I bought. I was like, $15? Fuck yeah! All right, easy. But yeah, very cool game. So plug anything you got going on, other than
man. Well, right now I'm just working on new Defiler music. We actually have a really cool cover coming out sometime within the next maybe month or so. We shot a music video for a cover of I'll Make a Man Out of You by Mulan. So that's going to be coming out. Doing that. I got, right now I'm doing some mixing and some ghostwriting and, some of that kind of stuff for bands. I started doing that a lot more. So right now I'm working on some stuff for like 3 different bands right now, mixing, mastering, ghostwriting, that kind of stuff. So yeah, man, I'm just trying my best to keep myself busy and, work on tunes. And I guess it'll come out when it comes out. I have no idea.
I feel that.
It's kind of turned everything on its ass. So I have no idea. But we shot the Mulan video right before the lockdown happened, and I might be able to shoot another video for a new original Defiler song sometime soon, if we, I guess, adhere to social distancing somehow. I don't know.
It's tough.
I mean, my thing is I love shooting videos so much, but not only have I lost 15 pounds because I'm not exerting any energy, therefore I'm not eating and exercising, right? I naturally have a really fast metabolism, so I have to engorge myself with food to get jacked. I haven't been, so I've lost 15 pounds. I'm skinny as shit again. I feel terrible about myself. So I'm great. Now I got to bulk back up again if I want to shoot another video. So I'm texting this director and I'm like, hey, we're going to have to wait a while before we do anything because I'm skinny again. I hate myself. And he's like, come on, man. And I'm just like, dude, COVID. Yeah. So that's about it.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for doing this.
Dude, thank you for having me, man. I love it. I can't wait to hear it and plug it on the socials. And I'm stoked, man. I'm really stoked on it.
Hell yeah. You're the man.
You're the man, dude.
Okay. Bye.
Later, bro.
that's it for this one. If you want to support the podcast, follow us on social media at Metalcore Nerds. Rate and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Follow on Spotify. Subscribe on YouTube. Keep sharing the episodes around. Tell a friend who you think might be into them. And if you want to support monetarily, you can go to redcircle.com/metalcore-nerds/donations. And until next time, this is Metalcore Nerds.